We're going to be talking about charging, specifically overcharging and undercharging. Happens quite a bit. A lot of units get left either over or undercharged, in which case a lot of times they still blow cold air in the house, but it starts working some bad magic on the outside units. We want to kind of demonstrate that a little bit if we can. We have a system set up here. This is a 410A system, and we've got our electronic gauges out. We've got a thermostat here that's connected to the system just like it would be in any home, except it would be on the wall. I've got my gauges connected, and I've got my temperature clamps connected, so we're going to get superheat and subcooling readings automatically. And then over here we've got our thermometer. We're going to monitor the leaving air temperature, and we're also going to be watching our scale. We're always, like we've talked many times, we're going to weigh in or weigh out any refrigerant anytime we're moving it through the system. So charging is very critical. We know that. We'll see if we can demonstrate the effects of some ounces one way or the other, and we'll look and see what the superheat and subcooling do. So first thing we're going to do is get our safety glasses on. I'll switch on the unit. Once I switch it on, it'll be in cool mode. The condenser will be running. Then I'll turn on all the electronics, and then we'll kind of see what's going on. So we're in cool now. Condenser's running. The indoor fan will be running. I'll turn on my gauges. I've already set them up for 410, so they're already programmed for 410. Let's get this stuff turned on. My scale. My thermometer. We'll get both of these guys going. So what we're going to be watching for is we're going to see the normal operation, and I'll adjust the charge a little bit if I have to. We'll just give it a second here to kind of stabilize. So our head pressure is 273, our suction pressure is 148. Not too concerning. We've got a subcool that's coming down a little bit, it's 13, and a superheat of a 3.3. Let's see what we have over here. We don't expect our scale to do anything because I'm not opening or closing the gauges. So we got 64 degree air leaving our air conditioning unit. That's what will be supplying your house, will be 64 degree air. It's 72 in here, so this is a 72 degree environment. So 64 to 72, that's a decent split. So our subcooling is starting to stable out at about 11.5. Now this manufacturer for this machine says they want 11. They want 10 to 11 on subcooling. And we're charging by subcooling because we have a TXV expansion valve, 10.8. So we're right on the money. This would be critically charged right now, perfectly charged. Superheat is 3. That's to be expected when you have a very short line set and we have fairly cool temperatures. But the manufacturer didn't say for us to worry about superheat, worry about subcooling. So we're starting out with a perfectly charged unit. Now we're going to alter that. So the first thing we're going to do is undercharge it a little bit. So if my scale is still zeroed, and it is, the critical thing here is I don't do anything to put weight on my tank, like pull against my hose or have my gauges hanging on my hose, and I won't. So I'm going to take liquid out and put it right into the recovery tank by opening the liquid line, and then I'm going to be looking at the scale as I do it just a little bit. I want to see how fast. So open this up. I'll do a couple ounces at a time, say 3. Okay, just that little bit. Put 5 ounces into the recovery tank. Just that little bit. A lot of guys guess at that and they get way off. If you're not using scales, you're going to be way off. So 5 ounces. We're still blowing out 63 degree air, even though we're 5 ounces low. My subcooling now came down into the 7s. So when I took out a few ounces, I've already affected my subcooling. Manufacturer wanted 10. Now I've got 7. My air temperature in my house, 63. See what I'm talking about? We're still blowing nice cold air in our home, but we're no longer at specs. Let me take out a few more ounces. So we got 5.2. Turn my lamp back on. 6, 7, okay, there's 8 ounces. Almost 9. You see how fast that happens? Very quickly does refrigerant leave when you're going through the liquid side. So we took out about 9 ounces. My subcoolant dropped down into 5s now. 5.2. We still have a 72, 70 degree room temperature. This condenser is probably warming it up a little bit. My superheat hasn't changed a whole lot. And my subcoolant is 5.5. Remember, the manufacturer wants 10 to 11. My air temperature in my house, still 63. Okay? So we can't go by air temperature in the house because we're now way below the manufacturer's recommendation, and we've only taken out 8 ounces. That's not a lot. So this unit right now would not work correctly. Most likely on a summer day it would be starving bad. So we've undercharged it 8 ounces, and we cut our subcool number in half, just with 8 ounces. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that back in. I'll add 8 ounces in. I'm going to zero it. And I'm going to add it back in through the suction line, remember? Because we're under high pressure on the liquid line. So I'm opening my suction line, and I'm watching my scale. That's 2 ounces, that's 3 ounces, 4 ounces, 5 ounces, 6, 7, I'm going to slow it down. Get back to 8 ounces. Okay, that's a little over 8 ounces back in the machine through the suction line. My subcool is coming back up. 8.3, 8.4, almost 9. Let's see what we got. Supply air temperature, 62.8. So we're kind of back to where we started now, right? We got our supply air temperature really never changed a whole lot. Our subcoolant is now 10, so we're back to where we should be subcoolant wise. Superheat didn't change a lot. 8.4 ounces, 62.8 degree supply air temperature. So we're back to a perfect charge. Now, let's go over a little bit. Let's add too much. So I'm going to zero my scale so we can see how much we're adding. So we're back to 0 on the scale. I'll start letting it in on the suction side. I'm going to let in, say, 5 ounces. That's not too much of an overcharge, but just see what it does. Alright, so now we're 5 ounces above our perfect charge. Our subcool number's coming up a little bit. Now it's 12. Let's give it a second to stabilize, because remember, when I add into my suction line, my condenser has to take that now and convert it into liquid before it can stack it up. So that takes a little second or two. So we're at a subcoolant of 12.6, and it's still going up. Our indoor supply temperature, 62.8, so it's hovering around that 63 degree mark. 12.8 on my subcool. A little high. The manufacturer wants 10 to 11. So what that means is I'm stacking up in my condenser. That liquid is just going to keep stacking up. That's not a good thing. We don't want too much in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another, say, 3 or 4 or 5 ounces. Let's see. Turn my lamp back on. Okay, so I'm adding through the suction line. That's 6 ounces, 7. We'll go to almost 9. Okay, that's 9 ounces. I'm still getting 62.8 degree air temperature supply, which would be in my home. Now my subcoolant number is going up some more. 14.7, 14.8. My superheat's still hovering right in that 2.4. It hasn't changed much at all. Now we have a subcoolant of 15.1 when we need to have 10 to 11. So we're stacking up. Our condenser's filling up. It will run out of room. It will completely run out of room. So 8 ounces. Let's see where we are. 9 ounces. 62.8. I'm going to add a couple more ounces. See where we're at. That's 12. We're going to try to go a pound over. That's a lot, but it happens all the time in the field. So that's going to be 16 ounces. I'm going to get there here real quick. And I'm not going to add more than that. Okay. So right now, this unit is 1 pound overcharged. Something that happens all the time in the field. Actually 2 or 3 pounds overcharged is super common. Our subcoolant is at 20. Our superheat is still 2.4. That's why we don't charge superheat with the TXV. It doesn't help us. 62.8 degree supply air temperature. So 20 on the subcoolant means I'm way, way high on my condenser. I'm probably getting very close to being full. And when it fills up, that compressor's going to stop. It's going to lock up. All right. I think we've seen enough where I can turn this off. Let me turn this off. Okay, so we've just seen a unit that was perfectly charged, and then we took it and we took out 8 ounces or so, and we saw our subcoolant number drop way down, but our performance in our house didn't drop down. Kept putting out 62, 63 degree air. And then we went back to a perfect charge, and then we went over. We went over by a whole pound, right? 16 ounces. When we went over that 16 ounces, our subcoolant number jumped up to 20. When it jumped up to 20, it really did not affect the indoor air temperature. So the whole point of this exercise is to show you that we had cold air in the house the whole time. The customer would have been happy if we were doing the old beer can cold thing. We'd have felt the beer can cold. We'd have been satisfied, but the machine would not have been happy. We would have walked away from this unit, and it would either flooded out the compressor and would have washed the oil out of it on the overcharge, or on the undercharge it would have overheated the compressor because we would have not got enough cooling back through that suction line. So the whole point of this exercise here is to show you how critical it is to get a proper charge and how dangerous to the equipment it is to have either an over or an undercharge.